Well, there are a number of reasons. I feel that females in this program although we are a very large majority within the program, I know with a lot of my female friends that sometimes we don't feel that we need to run for positions. And I'm not me personally because I have run, but I know a lot of girls feel that they don't need to run, and even if they do run, they might not run for higher level positions. If we look at our officer team this year, we have a lot of females on the officer team, but not in the major office positions. And I feel that it's a matter of inspiration, because it's, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because if we have more females in statewide positions, in higher statewide positions, then they would set an example for females in the future. And at the same time, the reason we don't have it is because we haven't had females who have set this example. Do you kind of understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but there are female delegates who run for governor every year. Why aren't they elected more often?
Honestly, I have some speculations about that. It's just because it's the general psyche of the public, I guess, because, in our history of the United States, we still haven't had a female president. It's just one of those things that we try to shove in the back of our mental state, but we just think about how underrepresented the women are in the world of politics, and it's something that I really would love to change.
Okay. If you had the power to do so, how would you solve the California budget crisis, starting with Ms. Patel?
I would cut unnecessary spending. We spend in a lot of areas that really don't need to be spent in, and I would really allocate the money back into projects that would put more jobs to our people. For example, the high-speed rail between Northern and Southern California is something that's come up a lot. I know I personally don't agree with it, but I see where they're going with saying the fact that it would build jobs for people. And so having things that are sustainable development that can give jobs back to people. For example, in the Great Depression, when President Hoover built the Hoover Dam, that was sustainable development and gave jobs to hundreds of thousands of people. So I would create projects such as that in order to give jobs to the people, and that would help in matters such as energy and the environment.
Yes, you.
Me?
Yes.
Me? Mm-hmm. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., the Senate will convene, and I believe the Assembly is convening at a similar time to discuss Budget Bill Jr., which is essentially addressing all the shortfalls of the budget that was passed last fall, and that propelled us from $14 billion in debt up to $41 billion in debt. I think that that's a pretty reasonable proposal that's going to be addressed tomorrow. It includes $14 billion in spending cuts and $15 billion in revenue increases, as well as some fund reallocations and shifts, and that is going to alleviate our $41 billion of debt right now. I think the content of whatever is in that bill right now is pretty solid, and it's been appealing enough so that the Republican Minority Leader, Dave Cogdill, has supported it and is looking to get 2 other Republican state senators to support it, although he might need 3 because Correa might vote no, although he's a Democrat. So I think I would just adopt a Budget Bill Jr.
I think that's an excellent point, but I feel the key is jobs. I think that to sustainable development and making sure that there are more jobs, there are more people putting money into this economy, because with jobs you have projects that you build. When you buy a house, you put money into labor, you remodel your house. So I think it's putting confidence in people by creating jobs and increasing the income of people.
Do you believe in a strict or a loose interpretation of the Constitution, starting with Mr. Farb?
So that's a interesting question. I think that you got to take each amendment case by case. Strict or loose? It's honestly very general. I'd prefer not to answer that question, because I think that there are certain amendments where I would say strict and certain amendments where I say loose. So overall, no.
So you believe that ambiguity is good in government?
No, I think it's terrible.
Well, you're saying that some you can say strict and some you can say loose. You should have a rule that states for every amendment.
Or perhaps a court that interprets how they should be interpreted. And we think we call that the Supreme Court.
Yes, but are you saying that just because you're not a part of the judicial system, you don't have an opinion of how this should happen?
Well, like I said, there are so many things that the Constitution covers that it's impossible for me to say, hey, I think that the Second Amendment should be interpreted loosely, but the Fifth Amendment should be not so loose.
Okay, your time has elapsed.
Sure.
I think that's an excellent question. I think that with the Constitution, when we have court cases I think it's important to take it in our day and age. We had Plessy versus Ferguson, where separate but equal. I mean, it's, I think, a strict freedom of speech. That should be a strict interpretation. I mean, with the First Amendment, for example, when you have freedom of speech, unless it imposes upon the safety, like yelling, "There's a fire" in a crowded theater. So I think a strict interpretation is the best.
I would also agree, a strict interpretation of the Constitution, because I believe that the Constitution is the Constitution for a reason. It is the supreme law of the land. It is the document that is greater than any person or governmental entity that will come in and out of government at some time, but the Constitution is our constant. But at the same time, we can amend it for what we want. So it's, out of all the things in government, I think that the Constitution is the one thing that we have to adhere to strictly.
Another court question. What Supreme Court decision in the United States history do you think has had the greatest impact on American society?
Can I start?
Yes, Ms. Patel.
All right, Roe versus Wade. I see. It's just one of those cases that has been contested for so long, ever since that the case did occur, and it's something that we face even today. And it's I don't know what more to say. Roe v. Wade has had such a great impact on America and on the people of America, and it's one of those issues that it's not something that was relevant then and is not relevant now. It's something that is going to be relevant even in the future and will probably be more relevant as time goes on. So I think that is a very pivotal court case.
For me, Brown v. Board is in 1954, has had the biggest impact on our society today. Obviously because it led to the desegregation of schools, although it took a few years to do it, but more importantly because it led to one of the two constitutional crises in this nation's history, when the state executive powers decided not to enforce that decision, but Eisenhower chose to enforce it and brought in the 72nd Airborne Division to oppose the National Guard of Arkansas. And that's what led to a constitutional crisis. You have American soldiers fighting against American soldiers, and that I think has taught us a whole lot about how to deal with these sort of things.
Those are both pivotal Supreme Court cases. Additionally, Plessy versus Ferguson, human rights, civil rights, all very important throughout any day and age. And with such a I mean, during the 50s and 60s, there was a lot of civil unrest and problems, and I think that those kind of cases that cause controversy are the ones that get things and bring to light to the general public what flaws we have in our society. And so I think when you have a faulty Supreme Court case, you understand, it brings to light to the people who aren't affected. It brings to light what other social injustice going on throughout the country.
If you could not vote for yourself for governor, which candidate would you vote for, Mr. Carr?
Oliver Middlestead, because I believe outside of making decisions to make this program better, the most important role of the youth governor is to preside over conferences and to keep you guys all entertained, keep you guys all energized, and I think he does a fantastic job of doing that. I think I could do a similarly good job, but should I be out of the race, that's who I'd vote for.
Thanks, Brian.
Oliver, Mr. Middlestead.
Unfortunately, I think I'd have to go with, I'd vote for Devonshie, just because when I talked to Rolf and I talked to Steve, I think the key was having a representative of the program and someone that people could trust would represent the youth the best, and personally I think it would be Devonshie.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Brian.
I would agree with Brian in saying that I would also vote for Oliver. I've known Oliver for a very long time, and I know what a great and dedicated person he is to our program. And I know that as much as I would love to win this position, if I were not to be in the race, that I would vote for Oliver, because he not only has the experience as a forum officer, as a statewide officer, but he has the dedication. And not that Brian doesn't, but just I feel that Oliver, I've seen through my own eyes and my own experience how Oliver has been as an officer. So I would vote for him.
The following questions were gained from multiple sources who have been close with the candidates from Bob Tube to SAC. They are in no means quotes from the candidates, but rather impressions that the press has gained of the candidates. Ms. Patel, your weakness seems to be as a time manager with poor organization. You seem to want to please everyone. How do you think this will suit you in the office of governor? Do you think it will be a weakness?